This is our first of the Urban Agriculture Pest Management webinar series. Just so everyone knows, this webinar series is coordinated by the Great Lakes Urban Agriculture IPM Working Group. This is a group of folks in the Great Lakes region, but actually beyond that too. We've got folks from, I think upwards to like 14 different states that are participating in this working group now, focusing on urban agriculture. So we're really happy that the group is growing. This work is supported by the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and specifically the Crop Protection and Pest Management Program through the North Central IPM Center. And we just always want to thank them for their support. Okay, so today our topic is going to be cover crops in raised beds and in small gardens, or gardens of a smaller size. And today we have Kevin Allison to talk about this. Kevin Allison is from Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District, and he is a soil health specialist with them. And he focuses on education, technical assistance, and advancing soil health principles and conservation practices, specifically in small-scale agriculture. Kevin works closely with the USDA NRCS to inform and develop technical resources and tools for planters and growers. His background includes a BS in environmental science from Indiana University, and service with the US Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic, and work with Indiana's soil health teams over the past decade. And I know his work also is part of a North Central Region SARE grant, which I'm sure he'll explain as well. So Kevin, I'm just going to hand it off to you, and that way I can do all the technical Zoom things in the background.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. And my PowerPoint up. Can you see it okay?
Looks great.
All right, cool. My name's Kevin Allison. I'm in Marion County, Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm with the Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District. We work really closely with Urban Soil Health, who's kind of like our statewide sister agency. We've also, my time and energy into all this is funded by North Central SARE and Clean Water Indiana, as well as the U.S. Natural Resources Conservation Service. You can see our website there, marionswcd.org/soil health. A lot of the resources that resources that I'll mention, calculators as far as how to calculate how much seed you need for cover crops and mulch and nutrient management. You can find it there. And we also have a lot of workshops during this season as well. I'm going to shut off my video just to keep things a little bit smoother. And we'll go from there. So you should see a QR code. I'll put a link in the chat during the question and answer part of this. But feel free to engage with that survey. It's just a quick survey that helps us report and learn how we can continue to teach and educate. This picture is actually Phacelia out on my porch. It's in a really tiny planter box. So I'm here to talk about small scale cover crops. I think we'll probably move up a little bit from this scale and go to the raised beds. So yeah, anything from raised beds to a small garden. A lot of my gardening experience, well, I guess I had about 4 years on raised beds in on a contaminated lot that had the whole community garden built on top of it. Not this picture. This is actually a picture from the state fairgrounds at the Purdue Extension Marion County garden. But yeah, I just noticed that when I was using cover crops, even on this raised bed scale, I could see the benefits. So the bed on the right's taking, we'll get into the management of all this and the details, but just in general, that cover crop is providing photosynthesis. It's providing roots for biology. There's legumes in that mix that are creating nitrogen for the next crop. And I even could tell a difference, the neighboring beds next to me, the neighboring raised beds, would actually lose their soil level over time just due to compaction and erosion. The little silt particles and little particles, liquid sediment would almost fall down or go downwards and just fill up just compact really. So having a cover crop even in a small space can do wonders. The next slide, there might be maybe excuse a little bit of lag. So I'll try to I'll try to stay timely with my sequences on moving to the next slide. We've got a lot to cover. But in general, well, yeah, at least especially in my garden, I really focus on these full soil health principles. So I'm always wanting to maximize living roots. That's what cover crops do great. Minimizing disturbance. I do a no-till garden, so a lot of this presentation will be in that context. If we get to Q&A and you want to talk about tillage and there's room for all of that too. But a lot of this will be around the context of the way that I like to garden. Maximize biodiversity. Cover crops can do that as well. Mixtures and different roots and that provide different kinds of sugars and food for microorganisms in your soil that then benefit your plants. And then maximizing soil cover. So a lot of the strategies that I like to use with cover crops are to produce mulch. So that way I can actually grow my own mulch and not have to buy so much straw and compost. So we'll be going a little bit over crop rotation. So I guess in general, it's just like crop, then a cover crop, then a crop, then a cover crop, crop. And I want us to think about like, what's the bed look like through time? So when you're planting a crop or a cover crop, what's that bed? What do we want that bed to look like? How's this cover crop gonna benefit us? And we'll do that through talking about common strategies. Starting off with like a winter killed, easy kind of mix that dies. Usually that's planted in August and September. There's like a legume strategy where we're growing legumes for nitrogen. And then if we have time, we'll finish with a high biomass cover crop, which is just like a big bulky cover crop that can do a lot for soil health and provide a lot of mulch too. So want to start out with vegetables. Oops. Want to start out with vegetables. So just to note that there's some great Purdue extension, and depending on your county, of course, or your state, like they might have different guides. But in general, I like to start with planting the vegetables first. So I try to get like, okay, when am I going to plant these in the spring? What am I going to plant during the fall and the summer? And then what are the days to maturity? So like how long will that vegetable actually be in the garden? I want to know this because that then lets me think about ahead of time, which I think is really important, how to plan for that cover crop in terms of timing and like which kind of cover crop you want to choose. So that matters because like look at this. You can see 4 pictures here. Like the one in the top left, that was a bed of beets. So it's harvested. It's going to be pretty easy to like rake any debris off that bed and then seed a cover crop either by broadcasting, or I like to use like a row seeder, such as like the Earthway seeder to do like you can see in the bottom right hand picture, just to get that cover crop planted. I'm not going to go super into depth on like how to plant cover crops. There's a great cover crop seeding methods document on our website that I would encourage you to check out too. But I will note that like, you can see the top right picture, that's sweet corn. So in terms of like, what do you want your bed to look like? For one, it's going to be really hard to push a row seeder through all that debris. It's going to be hard to rake off those corn stalks. And so in that case, I would probably broadcast the cover crop on top of it and just kind of shake it with a rake to see if I can get the seed to fall down and get good seed to soil contact. I'd then add a little bit of mulch or a little bit of like compost maybe to add to that seed to soil contact. But then, like, am I going to plant lettuce in that bed next year? Probably not, just because of the amount of residue that will still be around. So take into account what kind of residue is on the bed. And by residue, I just mean like leftover crop material. Like the bed on the bottom left is sweet potatoes, like the one on the left had been harvested already. That's really easy to plant almost any kind of cover crop. And of course, it's going to depend on your timing to want to know which cover crop you can pick. I'm not going to go into super detail about this graph here, but it is on the website, and it's basically wherever you see green, that's like a good seeding window for that specific cover crop. So I'd encourage you to go back and look at this. You can see there's some that are great in summer and some that are great in fall. And yeah, just a good resource to have during planting. There's also the cover crop tables. So of course, I think we have people from out of state here. So there's some characteristics of a certain cover crop that might not be exactly the same for your state. For example, like we can expect oats to survive the wintertime. Or sorry, we can expect oats to die during the wintertime, whereas farther south, like Kentucky or in even farther south, like oats may not die on a regular basis. So this is a good starting point just to know which ones will winter kill, which ones are legumes that will provide nitrogen, how tall they'll get, and effective ways of killing them. There's on the back side of that table, there's it goes into depth about seeding rates. So we did build a calculator that I would encourage you to check out on our website. It's where you can just kind of choose the cover crops, and whether you want low, normal, or high, then you can put in your square foot, and it will tell you exactly how much seed you actually need. But this is also a good like ounces per 100 square foot go-to for cover crops on this small scale. So if you wanted a really thick cover crop, you could pick a high rate of something. If you wanted a mix, maybe you pick a few different species at low rates. And there's a good YouTube video instruction video on how to choose those rates online as well. Just to hopefully wrap up with just like the resources that are out there. There is like a cover crop termination guide on our website, and like a favorite no-till garden cover crop mixes, which I'd really encourage you to check out. It's kind of like the basis for what I'm about ready to show you. And then in terms of like each strategy, and it tells you, when to plant them and what crops might be good next. And then we've got some one-pagers that outline each some of these strategies as well. So in general, we're going to talk about winter-killed cover crops first. And in general, like there's tons. Like this is not all inclusive, but the ones I like to use are oats and field peas. Sometimes I put radishes in that mix, but since I do grow a lot of brassicas, which radishes are, I grow a lot of brassica crops like kale. So I try not to put as much radish in my cover crop mixes because of that crop rotation. So just trying to break up families and giving time before planting a certain crop family more than once. Then we're going to go into overwintering low biomass, which I guess let's just call that legumes. So it's the legumes that are going to overwinter. And then I like to use those for things that need nitrogen, because that's, these legumes produce nitrogen, so we can use them for sweet corn and brassicas. And then we'll go into overwintering high biomass, which is basically anything for me that has like cereal rye in it, which is just like a cover crop that's can plant in late fall, and then it gets really big in the spring, and then we can terminate it. And we'll get into how. So yeah, just a quick look at a garden. That's actually mine. On the right, you can see the top picture. That's the cover crops growing in the late fall. And then the bottom picture was fairly recently. You can see most of it's dead. So those were the winter killed beds. There's a purpose for that, right? Those are going to be used for early spring crops. And then the bed on the right is a high biomass mix that's going to grow really tall, and I'll manage that in a different way. Also on our website, there's a link under crop rotation to my crop rotation template. It's one that a farmer shared with me, and you can kind of go in there and you can download it, you can change it, make it your own, modify it. But what I really wanted to show you, just like, or let you know, is that for me, it was super important to start planning on paper. Because once you get to fall and you need to plant a cover crop and you don't have the seed or you don't know what to plant, I like to do it well in advance. So I'm during the summertime, if I get a chance, I like to plan next year's crops, just so I can know what cover crop I'm going to plant in advance of those. So you can see like there's a high biomass cereal rye legumes mix that's going to go and grow all through the winter time. You can see on my beds B3 and B4, and then the circles for me are tarps. So I'm going to tarp that for 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, and then I'll plant sweet potatoes after that. The oats and hairy vetch is a great mix that I like to use for sweet corn. So it's going to grow all through wintertime. I'm going to weed whack it in April, tarp it for a couple weeks, and then plant sweet corn after that. Okay, so let's get into some winter killed strategies. Slow down, make sure the slides are catching up with me. Should see oats and field peas there. So that's just a good winter kill mix. The one on the left was planted earlier, and the one on the right was planted later. If you plant it earlier, you're obviously going to get more mulch out of it. So sometimes that can be a good thing. These are raised beds just showing like oats that have died. So it's a pretty easy cover crop to manage. If there are weeds in there, I like to spot weed, and I should make the note that like that's constant. In the fall and the spring, I'm always spot checking cover crop beds, all the garden. In my no-till context, I really don't like any weeds to go to seed. So for this plot here that you see, this was oats and field peas. There was probably a lot of chickweed in it at that given year, so I decided to tarp it in the month of March just to kill the chickweed. It was too much for me or too much to actually go in and like hand pick out. So tarping is an option to set back some of those weeds. And there's some nuances of that we'll probably talk about as we go through these. Yeah, so this is an untarping of the oats. You can just kind of see the residue there. It's super easy to rake off with a rake. Sometimes there will be perennial weeds that don't die from the tarp. Backing up, cover crops are awesome at weed suppression. It's one of the big reasons that I like to plant cover crops. They can shade out weeds, they can outcompete them, but it's not like a complete 100% silver bullet for weeds. So, however, like in the case of this strategy here, like when I pull the tarp off, like I can easily see weeds because everything else is dead, right? So I just go through and spot weed with a trowel on this small scale. Okay. If the residue's kind of like, and yeah, the dead oats, they might be like standing up a little bit. Usually they fall down and go flat during the wintertime. But if you need to make it easier to rake them off, like you can weed whack them. I like to weed whack the oats after they're dead, break them off right when I need the bed, and then add a layer of compost. That's just a tried and true tactic for me. So you can see the bed, 2 beds here that were oats. I raked the oats mulch to the middle of the bed, so it's really good at serving as walkway mulch. And then mulch up the beds with compost. This works great for onions. I'd say that's like the number one success that I like with this mix. Transplanting, just dibbling in onions seems to work great. The weed suppression is really good. And yeah, you can see there the bed on the left is onions, the bed on the right is garlic. So it's just dead oats that have been raked off, compost added, and then planted into. There's the same bed of onions that is fairly weed free. Okay, so a lot of we'll get into how to seed into this, but like transplanting seems to be pretty easy into this system. So like these very intensive cover crop rotations, like it's seed is doable for sure, and we'll look at that. But transplanting's super handy too. Just the transplant gets a head start on the weeds, and it's just like easier to work with the mulch. So I do like to add that compost though, instead of just leaving that tan oat mulch on the bed, because I do think it warms up the soil a little bit. Lighter tan mulch can kind of cool down the soil when we really need warm temperatures in the spring. This is a picture of a seeder trying to go through mulch. This is another reason that I rake the mulch off, because if I'm seeding spinach or carrots in the spring, it's really hard to push a 1-row seeder through through like straw or any kind of debris. So having that bed a little bit cleaner makes the seeder go through a bit easier. In the transition period, like when I was transitioning from like the tilled garden that I inherited to more of a no-till system, the soil isn't as good at the start, right? Over year by year, it seems to get better with the more cover crops and the more like compost I use. But in the interim, I do broad fork a bit just to kind of loosen up the soil. Like I'm not sure how many people on this call are familiar with broad forks, but it's basically just kind of using like a pitchfork like tool to stick in the ground and rock back a little bit. So you're just rocking it back and then sliding it out, not inverting the soil, but just loosening up just a little bit. It makes transplanting a bit easier, and it makes seeding sometimes easier as well. I'm hopefully I can ditch that in the next couple of years, just because the soil health is getting better and the soil has more tilth and just softer and easier to plant into. Cool. Yeah, so see, yep.
Kevin, we just had one question in the chat box. They were wondering if you're using hot composting to make sure that the compost you're adding has less weed seed in it, let's say.
No, kind of like I use a lot of leaves. Like almost all my like compost that I've used in the last like 5 years has just been leaf based. So I don't necessarily hot compost it. I do try and I do not throw like my weed seeds in that compost pile. Those go in a different pile. So yeah, so I'm not necessarily using hot composting to kill weed seeds, but it would be a good idea if you're using yeah, if you're using compost that might have weed seeds in it. Good question. And yeah, so this I think this is one of the last pictures on this winter killed cover crops, but you know, something like spring peas works pretty good in that system too. You know, if you've got like those early crops like onions and peas, beets work great. Okay, moving on to garlic. So this is using that same kind of winter killed cover crop, but before garlic. I really, really like this strategy too. So same concept, you grow winter killed cover crop. However, we plant, at least I plant garlic in like October, right? So technically that, well, realistically, that cover crop's not dead yet. However, it still can produce like a lot of mulch. And that's one of the things that we like to do with garlic is mulch. So this picture shows me just weed whacking that oats and peas down. You can see the bed on the left. That's how tall it was. So you've got all this oats and debris there. I rake it off and then I dibble in the garlic. So just like measuring it off and dibbling in at the right spacing. You can see a little feather meal. That's the nitrogen source. And yeah, so the cover crops providing a lot of biological benefit. There might even be some mycorrhizae fungi connection with, you know, oats and garlic. I don't know. There's a whole world of science out that can yeah, forge ahead on all this, but it's also a really practical approach for me. So I dibble in the garlic, especially on a small scale. I then close the garlic holes, usually by hand. And then I like to add a layer of compost. This wouldn't be completely necessary if you just wanted to use straw. But I like the compost just to keep the bed mellow and warm. And then I add straw. And then pretty much off to the races from there. And I don't have to worry about this bed so much until I um, just about harvest it in, you know, July. So there's usually not a lot of weeds that come up, but if there is, definitely spot weed and make sure no weeds go to seed. Okay, so at that time when garlic's coming up in the spring and the onions are being planted in these winter killed cover crop beds, you can also see this big cover crop on the right. And that's actually hairy vetch. There might be some crimson clover in there, but that is a very legume-based cover crop. There's no cereal rye in it though. We'll talk about that after legumes, but this is just a very legume-dominated mix. So I like to use oats with it. I add oats just because oats die, and I don't know, it's just an easy, yeah, like easy boost for diversity. But really what I'm wanting to survive and what I want to utilize with this mix is the legume component. This is a picture from Butler University, maybe just a little bit bigger than small scale, with his 50-foot rows. But you can see this crimson clover flowering. That's probably like April. And yeah, it's producing nitrogen. The bees love it. All sorts of benefits, and it's beautiful. Here's a couple pictures of raised beds and what that might look like. You can see the oats dying, and then the hairy vetch is green and ready to survive the wintertime. And again, like depending on your region, like if you're up north, like maybe it dies. Yeah, you'd want to look at like extension or Natural Resource Conservation Service contacts or documents to know about what that might be doing in your state, and maybe the Midwest Cover Crop Council too. Okay, so legumes growing, right? It's spring. Usually it flowers in April. Sometimes I wait till April to weed whack it and terminate it. However, sometimes I need that bed sooner than then. Kind of depends on the crop rotation. But if I can wait as till the crimson clover or hairy vetch like start going towards flower, they're producing a lot more nitrogen at that point in time. So as they move towards flower, think more nitrogen, which is kind of the benefit that I'm going for in most cases. I then weed whack it. I just got like a plastic blade, which last year I'm trying out. In the past I've used string. It works pretty good, but I really do like this like plastic. It seems to tear through the cover crops really easy and shred them up like really good. So here's a hairy vetch on the left, for example, and then you can see on the right that kale's been transplanted in the same kind of bed. So that hairy vetch was weed whacked, and then sometimes I'll put like a layer of newspaper on top and then straw, and I'll let that sit for like 10 days. And the reason I do that is because if you don't, then it's potential that the hairy vetch or cover crop could regrow. But putting like, just blocking out the light with, and maybe even putting pressure on like just the weight or the physical block of the plant not being able to grow through the paper and the straw, helps kill it. I have tried, you can also tarp, which we'll talk about, or you could just, the more mulch you add, if you don't have newspaper, just the more mulch, the better in holding this down. If you're on like a 2-acre farm, like try this on a small scale first, just to make sure you got it down. Because in a small scale, if like one cover crop regrows, you can just kind of pick it and pull it, right? And kill that, kill any spread of it. But if you're on like 2 acres, it's good to have tried it first. Make sure you got a handle on it. Okay, so this is transplanting that kale into that bed. So it really is just as easy as taking a trowel. You can kind of see the paper, like the dead cover crop, releasing the nitrogen, and then the paper, and then the straw on top of it. So kale, something like kale or broccoli or those heavy feeders that need a lot of nitrogen are benefiting from the legume and the mulch that's been produced. So I really do like that system. There's also, on raised beds, like I know that getting a weed whacker out like might not be like appropriate. Like you might not have one, for example. I've used all sorts of things. I've tried all sorts of things. Like a sickle works good, like a knife, shears. It's just kind of a matter of, maybe putting a little bit more time into it. It might just take a little bit longer and a little bit more sweat equity to terminate it. I've actually had somebody pull up something like hairy vetch here on the left, like one of my friends like lifted it, and then I just took a sickle and like made sure I cut the roots. So the picture on the right, you can actually see this bed. The hairy vetch was pulled off of it, just to show like what it looks like the biomass, what's it look like underneath there. So having that clean cut and making sure you've cut all the stems will ensure that it dies more quickly.
Hey, Kevin.
Yep.
Yeah, some good questions. Lori was wondering if you can use cardboard instead of newspaper.
Yeah,
we'll start with that one.
Yep. So the idea is to block the light. I think probably blocking the light to kill the cover crop and also create like a physical barrier. So anything that does that, yes, I would say would work. And just be cognizant that you're gonna have to punch a hole through it. Like it might be a little bit harder. Yeah. And working with cardboard, right? I use tarps a lot. So like I'll tarp and then I'll untarp it. Like tarp for like 3 weeks, for example, to kill a cover crop, and then pull the tarp off, and that does the trick too. But yes, like adding cardboard or newspaper plus straw and mulch can be helpful if it blocks the light.
All right. And Nicole had a question, and maybe you're going to go into this, but she's asking kind of what are some more effective techniques for terminating overwintering cover crops. So you basically just went through the idea of cutting it, terminating it by cutting it down and then covering it just to make sure it doesn't regrow.
Yep.
But are you going to go through any other
Yeah,
techniques?
Yeah, there's lots of ways to do it, right?
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, like even like tilling even is even like I've seen people like use a pitchfork, right, to turn it over, and then it kind of regrows, and you might have to do a pitchfork again. But yeah, a lot of this presentation is kind of geared towards like a no-till context. Um, so in general, yeah, like mostly just weed whacking, and I'll show you here crimping in a bit. So actually just pushing the cover crop over, and then mulching up or tarping. And I think those are probably like the two most, probably maybe the three most effective ways. One would be letting it winter kill, one would be weed whacking, and then one would be pushing it over. And all three of those could be used in combination with the tarp or mulching up to just be more effective at suppressing, yeah, terminating the cover crop and any weeds that might be growing. Okay. So moving on with legumes, this is hairy vetch. You could do the same thing with Austrian winter peas, or you could do the same thing with crimson clover. But in the springtime, I weed whacked it, and this is heading to sweet corn. So this is over 2 beds. So yeah, just weed whacking it down, and then putting a tarp on it. If you don't tarp, like it's doable, but um, all that nitrogen from the hairy vetch is going into the soil. And without a tarp, like sometimes that can just spur weeds to come up. Like, yes, it's going to be great for the sweet corn, but it can also be good for like grasses and things. So I do think that a couple weeks of tarping kind of sets that all back in my experience and gives you just a cleaner bed for the rest of the year. Um, you can see the debris. This is hairy vetch debris. I like to just leave it on the bed. So I know I talked about raking off oats and mulch to get a seed bed, but for these legumes, like I really do like leaving the mulch on the bed. And a big reason is that a lot of the nitrogen is in that top growth. So if I put it in the walkway or if I put it in somewhere else, like it's not going to be getting to my crops. Um, so yeah, like this is sweet corn. Like I dibble it in. You could use like pushing a rose seeder through there might be tricky. If you wanted to absolutely push a rose seeder through, I would weed whack it like a couple more times, like weed whack the hairy vetch, let it maybe grow back a little bit, weed whack it again, and then tarp just to break down the pieces more fine. And that might help facilitate that, or maybe a light tillage. But in my context, I dibble it in. So yeah, the next picture should be coming up now, but you can see the hairy vetch mulch like in the middle of the sweet corn. Yeah, just kind of all over the sweet corn bed. So it's protecting. It's not like a whole lot of mulch because it is a legume and they do decompose pretty quickly. So actually, sometimes like I will add compost just in the spirit of keeping my bed covered, completely covered in soil health, like armored all year long. Like if there's not enough mulch that I can get from the cover crop, then I'm definitely going to mulch up, whether it be with compost or straw or something else. And you can see the dark green in this corn. So that really didn't require too much weeding that season, just because I had a great cover crop suppressing weeds. The tarp terminated the cover crop, and then yeah, just had good mulch, good soil cover, and good crop response. If you sometimes I think like I hear like, okay, can we just like throw seed out? It's a small space. Yes, you can. And the calculator like on our website will let you know like, exactly how much seed do you want to plant if you really want to get a good ratio of mix. But yeah, like it is possible to like overseed something. Like this was oats in a legume cover crop. I really wanted the legume to survive, but I just like threw out a whole bunch of oats with it. So the oats just completely dominated the stand and the crimson clover didn't survive. So that's why keeping, the grass component, if you really want that, the legume to shine, making sure you keep down those, the oats. You can give it a haircut. And I just did this actually to a bed like that. I noticed in the fall that there was too much oats, so I just weed whacked the top of it and let the sun shine in for the crimson clover to pop out of the bed. And you can see, yeah, this is a kind of a wild looking picture, but that's just dead oats and a raised bed with a legume cover crop popping out of it.
Kevin, we had a quick question about the beautiful corn that you
Yeah.
grew. Someone was wondering if you added additional nitrogen beyond what the legume was able to provide.
Yes, and if you can make it to Indiana Small Farms Conference in a couple weeks, I'll be doing a nutrient management course on that, and then also we'll be probably doing some webinars later this spring about nitrogen and nutrient management. Because yeah, it's a good question. Like depending on like when you kill the cover crop, like if you the answer is yes. Like sometimes I do add more nitrogen, but not near as much as I would have if I wouldn't have had the cover crop. So there's charts and calculators that can tell you that can kind of estimate how much nitrogen you might get from that legume, and then you would compare that to what the extension might recommend for sweet corn, for example, and then you can subtract it. And there's some nuances there that probably don't have time to get into right now, but in terms of like when that nitrogen is available, like if you were to till in the hairy vetch or legume, for example, the nitrogen may release quicker, so more of like a starter fertilizer. Where in this no-till situation, like it's probably more of a slow release through the season. So you might need to add like a starter fertilizer, for example. But yeah, it's a great question. And while I'm on this picture, like FYI, like if you're on a raised bed and you weed whack, like the stuff might go everywhere. It's just part like I don't know what the trick is there, like rather than like picking the mulch back up and putting it back on the bed, or weed whacking better than me. But yeah, that can happen. So like if you're on a small bed and you don't want to deal with that, then just move to shears or a sickle. Cool. Okay. I know like time is of the essence, so I do want to get into a little bit about overwintering high biomass cover crops, because I do use them a lot. By that, I just mean cereal rye, basically, and mixing it with, yeah, because cereal rye is such a dominant like crop, like a cover crop, because it grows really big and bulky in the spring, and it's not as easy to kill maybe as some of the other cover crops, though if you do it right, it definitely can be done. This is a big mixture cover crop. There's some cereal rye in there. There's also some legumes. Go to the next slide. That's just like cereal rye. So I do like the mixtures because the rye doesn't cover the entire soil in terms of weed suppression. So like, getting some other broadleafs into that grass dominated mix can help fill in those gaps. And yeah, just it's a better overall for the garden, I think, to have a more diverse cover crop. Okay, then it's going to start growing in the spring. It's going to survive the winter time. And it's going to get really tall come like April. There's like usually like a big growth spurt. If you get past this point and you want to till it, good luck, I think, unless you have a really powerful like tiller, like just because like there's so much root mass and and like top biomass that it's really hard to get through. But again, this is kind of more of a no-till approach. So you can that mixture will eventually get to a reproductive stage. Sometimes the legumes bloom earlier than the cereal rye. You can see this pollen on the rye grain head. It's going through anthesis. In general, this is like the best time to cut or crimp a cover crop because all its energy is into flower and reproduction, and it doesn't regrow as easily. However, if you have a tarp or thick mulch like cardboard, and you want to not wait for this to bloom in early June or late May or even mid-May, it's kind of like depends on the weather, depends on the variety of cover crop. So if you don't want to wait and chance it, you can always terminate early and then tarp it. So like yeah, cut or crimp and then tarp. So in general, the idea is to yes, like plant the cover crop in the fall. Survives the winter time, grows real big. I like to crimp it down. Like you could even use like a T-post. I then tarp it for like 25 days or until completely terminated. I then remove the tarp and transplant into it. Um, yeah, you could probably cut it down in layers with hedge trimmers too. Yes, I've seen that done too. Yeah, great idea. um, Okay, so this picture shows a cut cereal rye, a cut high biomass mix on the left, and a crimped one on the right. And by crimped, I'm just meaning like pushing it over. In Big Ag, they've got these like big like roller crimpers that can crush crush like the stem of the plant to push it over, and that stops water and nutrient flow, and it kills the cover crop easier. Usually we don't have a lot of weight like to push on a cover crop, so it's kind of hard to bend. You can hand break the stems, right? But in general, especially if you have a tarp, just getting it pushed over so you can get that tarp on it, or mulching up is a-okay. The one on the left will, it's because it's in pieces, will probably break down quicker. There's probably a little bit more susceptibility to weeds on the one on the left when it's actually chopped up, whereas the biomass on the right that's just crimped will probably hold weeds back a little bit better. There's different tools on the small scale that can be used to crimp these down. This is Frith Farm and Daniel Mays. That's almost like a foot crimper. And yeah, it's basically like where you would walk over the bed and push it down. I think I've got another picture coming up. But I do want to interject that if you do cut early or crimp early, or even at the right time, and this is why the tarp can be so important, or mulching up can be so important, that a cover crop can regrow, which is not what you want, right? So the bed on the left was beans. That was cereal rye that had been weed whacked, I think early, and it started to regrow again. So make sure the cover crop's dead before planting the next crop. The one on the right is a pepper plant that was like a biomass mix that was crimped, but not tarped. The crimping actually killed the cereal rye, but it did not kill the legume. So you can see the legume cover crop kind of growing out of the mulch. Also not what you want. So again, make sure the cover crop is dead before moving forward. Yeah, I'm gonna skip ahead, maybe not skip ahead, but gonna speed up just a little bit so we can get to questions. But this is a picture of a T-post. Like I get on my hands and knees and just T-post it down before tarping. There's also the foot crimper option. That's Butler University doing the crimping just to get it flat. And the idea is to yeah, just get it down so then you can get a tarp on it to make sure it's dead. If you pull off the tarp and you see any hint of green in these mixes, especially cereal rye, put the tarp back on. It usually takes about 25 days, but if there is a hint of green, it does mean it's still got some vigor in it, and yeah, you don't want that regrowing again. So yeah, just again, I think I've said it 3 times, but make sure the cover crop's dead. I'm gonna skip ahead just a sec to planting the next crop. So this is, I really like sweet potatoes after cereal rye, after it's been crimped and tarped. So you could even use gosh, a trowel works pretty good if your soil's hard, and if you're in that transition period, or you just have really hard clay, rod forking first can help. I've used a tree planter to make transplant holes. I've used a trowel to make transplant holes. All work pretty good. I will say it's not planting into a tilled soil, right? For the most part, a tilled soil is yeah, it's just easy to scoop up and things. But I think the benefit of this system comes with one, the soil health, and then 2, just the weed suppression. The amount of this sweet potato bed, I might not have to weed it for the rest of the season. So other than just spot weeding a couple of times. And that depends on your weed pressure and everything else. But in general, yeah, it's just a really good mat to suppress the weeds. I think, Maggie, I'm wondering if I should stop for questions. There's so much more we can talk about with cover crops on the small scale. You can plant tomatoes into this mix. The mulch protects the ground, so there's not as much soil splash, which leads to reduced disease. Yeah, so many benefits. There's the roots from the cover crop feed the soil life, and it also increases airflow just because of the pore space that's developed underneath the soil. So yeah, in general, I highly recommend cover crops on a small scale.
Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, you are just such a amazing resource on this, and the fact that you've done it in so many different ways and styles is so useful. So yeah, let's get to the questions. I see there's a lot of questions coming in. We did have one a little ways back too. Someone was wondering if you could use cover crops to kind of reclaim a raised bed that it has become inundated with weeds.
Yes. Yes, I mean not like nothing's gonna like you're gonna have to hand weed, right? Like if there's if you're eliminate the weeds first. Okay,
Mhm.
like before planting a cover crop, like make sure the weeds are gone because if you plant a cover crop into existing weeds, um, the weeds are gonna like outcompete it. So yeah, so making sure like whether it be like stale seed bedding, which would be like even like hoeing it and then letting it grow again, like letting the weeds grow again, and hoeing it again, or like tarping it for like during the summertime if you get the chance. Um, and then planting a cover crop, like just to restore soil health and just get on top of weeds. There's make sure you get the weeds done first. I know that's like not easy sometimes, but at least set them back. And then that next spring, like you've got you've had some weed control, then you've had a cover crop. And then if you like tarp that next spring to kill the cover crop, you're also tarping to kill the weeds. So it's just like continually setting back the weeds. And like over time, like now 7 years, like my weed my weed composition has changed. Like the weeds are different. They're less annuals, and now they're more like the occasional perennial that I just have to go through and like pop out with a knife, with a soil knife, as opposed to just like constantly stirrup hoeing. Um, yeah, good question.
That's great. Yeah, so you can use it to hold the progress, not really make the progress, but keep the progress that you make with getting those weeds out.
Yes. Yep.
Um, Someone had a question, Jacob, I'm gonna need your clarification, I think, here too. And I've allowed you all to unmute yourself. So you asked, did you have any rotations where you found interseeding particularly helpful? Um,
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you're talking about interseeding, or if you know what he's talking about, Kevin, go ahead.
I might take a guess, like, and please clarify if not, if I've got this wrong, Jacob. But yeah, it kind of like, so what's the bed look like at the end of the season? Like, what, like, let's say it's like a watermelon bed, and like there's like leaves everywhere, right? There's no soil, there's no sunlight, um, getting to the soil. So to interseed something, like to seed a cover crop while the existing crop is growing might be tricky if the plant is something like watermelon or even like peppers that really just like shade out the bed. However, like something like kale, that's almost like a palm tree, by September, like if you've still got kale going, yeah, you could definitely like underseed that to the next cover crop. Sometimes like right around the plant, like maybe like I don't know, 10 inches to a foot around the plant, like because of the shade and because of like the moisture that the established plant is taking up and the nutrients that it's taking up, like the cover crop might not do as well. So that's where you just be ready to add some more compost or mulch around the base of that or in that area that didn't really have good growth. But yeah, kale, like if you prune your tomatoes really well, like if you do like a trellis system where it's heavy pruning, there's some potential to underseed under that. I've seeded cereal rye like into late spinach, like the spinach is had a first cut and it's on its way to its second cut. Like if I've got like established spinach rows, like maybe 4 rows on a bed, I could do like cereal rye on each side of those. Yeah, or you could do almost broadcast it out. If you're a market farmer though, like be careful with that because um, like what if you need to like harvest that whole bed of spinach really fast, and there's like cereal rye growing up in it, and you're like cutting cover crops into your harvest bag with your spinach. I'd just be cognizant of that. But on a home garden, like yeah, like you can pick around cereal rye. It's no big deal. Good question.
Nice.
Hope I answered that right.
Yeah, Nicole was wondering about if you've seen allelopathic impact from cereal rye if you're seeding into the bed afterwards.
Um, Yeah, ooh, yeah, that's a great question. I wish there was more research on it and more everything about allelopathy. So allelopathy is basically like the chemical from the cover crop, or crop. Some crops have like a chemical release when they basically outcompete other plants. Like it's cereal rye, for example, or buckwheat has allelopathy that can stop small seeded crops from germinating. So in general, like I don't seed small seeded crops after cereal rye, like carrots, and plus like there's just like a whole bunch of mulch there too, so it's hard to plant small seeded crops anyways. I have like so transplanting in like zucchini, watermelon into cereal rye mulch like is seems to work. I would say that my zucchini and summer squash germination after rye is probably like 70%, 60, 70%. And I don't know how to compare that to like a non-cereal rye. Like I think I garden too much with cover crops. I don't have experience like gardening without them so much. Um, but yeah, like sometimes, yeah, the seeds won't pop. So I think just waiting, 20 days, I think that's kind of in what some like Sayre Managing Cover Crops Profitably is a great book. I think they might recommend, like waiting 20 days after like you kill a cover crop. But yeah, I'd love to see research on, has a tarp affect allelopathy, like the concentration of allelopathy? How's the growth stage of the cover crop, and when you kill it, affect its release on allelopathy? I don't have any good answers for you. Like, I don't have a great answer for you, Nicole, on allelopathy. But yeah, I would just probably avoid small seeded crops after cereal rye. And the book I just mentioned was Sayre, Managing Cover Crops Profitably. If you do go to our Marion SWCD website, I think I've got it listed as a resource under cover crop section. Sayre,
Great.
Managing Cover Crops Profitably.
Yeah, and I'm sending out the recording after. So if you want to send me any links, Kevin, we can send that with the recording as well.
Cool.
Someone else had a question about they planted the cover crop in the fall once they died back from the frost. So it sounds like it was a winter kill. They covered the cover crops with a layer of leaves. And they're asking, what's the best way to manage that before planting? Do they need to shred the leaves first? Or can they leave the leaves and just plant into the bed?
Yeah, good question. I think Jesse Frost at No Till Growers, like he's done some awesome videos about like leaves and like using leaves and leaf mold. So I definitely encourage you to check out No Till Growers on YouTube. But in general, I think to summarize, like if you've got a whole leaf, like a full leaf, on top of the bed, like water might not penetrate as well. So I would almost be tempted to weed whack it, to shred it somehow first, or run it through a compost pile first to even for a season to get it a little bit more broken down. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world, like if you do have leaves on top of your bed, but like it probably is advantageous to get it broken down, and it probably depends on the crop too. So like onions, like if you're doing like onion sets, or like by the actual plant, or or any kind of like yeah, even like a lettuce like transplant like would be easier to plant into a bed that has leaves than it would be to seed, like use a row seeder to try to seed through it. So it kind of depends on like what you're going for, but in general, I think my gut would be to try to get it broken down first, and maybe you could just like weed whack, run a weed whacker or a mower over the top of it to try to get it chopped down a little bit.
Someone else had a question about they've just seen a shift from annual weeds to perennial weeds as they've tried to improve their soil health. So they wanted to know if you knew of anything of why that shift might happen, or if you've seen something similar as you've worked with some of these areas and improving the soil health.
Yeah, I think there's probably soil health things about that, right? And like, I don't know, nutrient cycling and different weeds responding to that. I think like what I'm probably more what I know a little bit more about is just like the change in management. So like, and I'm not sure if you're like, yeah, you can achieve soil health without being no-till. Like that's a fact, right? You can use cover crops and other practices and still till and be okay. But I think growers are finding that when they do switch to no-till, that they do see that, and especially with tarps, that there is a shift from annual weeds to perennial weeds. I'd probably like encourage you to look at Cornell universities, and I think it was in coordination with Maine, University of Maine. I hope I'm not getting this wrong, maybe New Hampshire. At any rate, they all did amazing work on tarping. And I think like they in that study, it was like 14 out of the 16 most common weeds were like set back by a system with tarping and soil health. And then there was a couple weeds that like persisted, and it was like purslane and crabgrass. So yeah, like I think just like you know, I guess like a good example would be I think it's called hairy galansoga. It's a very common annual weed in like gardens that I see. It's got like a little yellow flower on it. It can grow like 6 times in one season, like germinate 6 times and like have 6 life cycles in one season. And it loves like light tillage. So like whenever you like stir po, like it loves that. So it's going to respond to that. So I think that management, differences in management is just going to, yeah, likely change the weed regime that you're dealing with. I saw somebody put a link in the chat for the guide. It's a long one and it's got some
Yeah.
case studies and stuff. It's really good. I'd encourage you to read it.
Well, I didn't see any more questions, but I did see a lot of people just singing your praises, Kevin, and saying this was exactly the information they needed.
Cool.
And just lots of thank yous. So yeah, let me add to that chorus of thank you for being with us today. And thank you for all the amazing photos. Like the photos you had as part of your presentations were so illustrative and helpful. So yeah, so thank you so much. Do you
Great.
want to drop your survey in real quick before
Um,
anyone leaves? We've
yeah,
got,
yeah. I think I did already. I'm going to do it again. Yeah,
oh,
like we
great.
just have like a really quick survey just to let us know. Yeah, just let us know if it was helpful, and so we can better report to our lovely funders.
Right. Yeah, and it is. It's like under 10 questions, so it'll take you just a minute. So I really encourage you to take that. So we just have this feedback. Yeah, it's not as easy sometimes to really sing why this information is so important. So we really appreciate that. And I also just want to remind you too that this is just the first in our series of 3. So we've got 2 more. We'll be here at the same time next week, Friday. We're going to talk a little bit about nutrient deficiencies. So that's kind of a different topic that we don't talk about very often. And then our last presentation is about weeds. So it'll be about using smartphone apps to identify your weeds and the research that's gone into which ones are actually effective and accurate. So that'll be a great one to join as well. So so thanks for being here. We'll stick around for a second here, just in case anyone has any other questions, but you will be getting the recording. I will send out a message. If it takes, I had planned to get it out to you today, but if, it'll take a little while maybe to get some resources from Kevin. You can expect that maybe next week. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Really
Thank you.
appreciate you being here.